Well, good evening and welcome. This is News First Primetime News. I am Shaheen Jurangpati.
I'm Stephanie Lazarus. Before we head into the news in detail, here's a look at the headlines.
Restrictions on WhatsApp to be lifted at midnight. Facebook block to be lifted in the coming days. President meets Japanese Prime Minister. Non-academic staff prepared to stop all operations from tonight. State Minister claims lack of funding to solve issue. Surveyors prepare to strike over American firm involvement in project.
President Maithripala Sirisena called on Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe today.
President Sirisena and Prime Minister Abe held talks at the Prime Minister's official residence in Tokyo. The leaders discussed a number of matters, including promoting investment opportunities in Sri Lanka, as well as further enhancing relations between the two countries. President Maithripala Sirisena, who is on a state visit to Japan, made an observation tour of a modern waste management center in Shingawa in Tokyo this morning.
A march was held in Nugegoda today to highlight the importance of national reconciliation.
The march, which began near the Mirihana police station, concluded at the Nugegoda flyover. Religious leaders of all faiths and officers of the Mirihana and Maharakama police stations attended the march.
Our hope is to overcome whatever difficulties we may have mentally at present and to live in peace as citizens of this country. Every person must think. We must live as Sri Lankans. We must protect unity in the country. It is important to move ahead as people of one nation. We must not leave room for violence and destruction.
The reconciliation march was organized by the Community Police Unit of the Mirihana Police.
On to one of our headline-making stories now. President Maithripala Sirisena has issued instructions to lift the restrictions imposed on WhatsApp from midnight tonight. The President's media division said the President, who is currently on a state visit to Japan, issued the instructions to the Secretary to the President, Austin Fernando, after evaluating the security situation in the country.
The decision comes the day after restrictions imposed on Viber were lifted at midnight yesterday on the instructions of the President. On Wednesday last week, the government took a decision to ban social media platforms, including Facebook, WhatsApp and Viber, in the wake of the unrest which broke out in Kandy. The President's media division said representatives of Facebook are set to arrive in the country tonight and will hold talks with the Secretary to the President tomorrow. Issuing a release, the President's media division said the necessary monitoring and surveillance methods will be implemented to lift the restrictions on Facebook.
The delay in re-allowing access to Facebook is not anything politically related. It is only because we are trying to ensure that such an incident does not reoccur. We are confident Facebook will give us a clear answer this by tomorrow, and by Friday everything will be back to normal.
Meanwhile, speaking in Japan yesterday, President Maithripala Sirisena said a new program will be introduced on social media in the coming weeks.
Though it is said in words that this cannot be touched and nothing can be done about it, just a week after we blocked access to these platforms, people from large companies around the world have been coming into the country saying their revenue has dropped drastically. Government institutions have made massive profits. However, after Facebook was blocked, the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission has made an additional daily profit of 200 million rupees than usual. To control such a situation, I suggested that we come to an agreement with these companies to ensure these bad incidents do not repeat and instead promote only the good. But if it is destroying society, there has to be a sense of control. So in light of the current situation, I have decided to introduce a new program within the coming weeks. This is not something that could be done in a matter of hours or days. It is a responsibility of the government and government officials.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said new legislation in this regard will be passed in the coming weeks.
The Attorney General's Department and Ministry of Law and Order are looking at a legal system. In countries like England, there are laws against hate speech. So we have to look at how we can implement the law here. At the moment, it is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights which is in use in Sri Lanka. Germany also has passed laws to control social media. A draft bill in this regard has also been presented to the Senate Council in the Philippines. The TRC in Kenya has issued regulations as well. The law we have today only affects print and electronic media. Nowhere in the world does it affect social media. So the Attorney General's Department is taking measures to draft legislation on this matter as well. Our intention is not to ban Facebook entirely, but to just introduce new legislation for it.
It is being reported the ban imposed on popular social media platform Facebook is likely to be lifted in the coming days. Total global population is just over 7 billion people, and as of the fourth quarter of 2017, Facebook had 2.2 billion monthly active users, and that number has gradually increased. In Sri Lanka, there are just over 5 million Facebook users. When users sign up for a service such as Facebook, users agree to the terms and conditions of the service provider. If we take a look at the policies of Facebook, under the heading Safety, Article 7 states, "You will not post content that is hate speech, threatening or pornographic, incites violence or contains nudity, graphic or gratuitous violence." Therefore, if someone posts on Facebook they are going to commit mass murder in a high school, it is important to censor such material and inform the authorities. When someone posts such content, those who find it abusive and offensive report that content to Facebook, who according to their community standards would review the content. However, the issue in Sri Lanka, if content of this nature is posted in Sinhala, it proves difficult for Facebook's community standards to take action. Tomorrow, a delegation from Facebook is expected to arrive in the island and hold talks with the Secretary to the President, Austin Fernando. What is required now is for representation in Sri Lanka from Facebook to address the concerns raised by the government. If such representation is set up, whatever the content is reported by Sri Lankan users as abusive and offensive in local languages could be reviewed and removed more efficiently.
Today, the trade union action launched by the non-academic staff attached to universities and higher education institutions entered its 15th consecutive day. It's now reported that the trade union is preparing to take a bold step forward from midnight tonight.
Over 15,000 non-academic staff are engaged in this trade union action, citing 5 main demands. Subject Minister Kabir Hashim has held a discussion with the trade union before assuming duties. However, once he took up the position officially, the trade union has not been provided a single round of talks to solve the matter.
Academic activities are not taking place within the universities. If this situation continues, the number of graduates in the future will drop. This will lead to a crisis. Students suffered a lot when they raised issues over Saitam. They are facing the same situation due to the non-academic staff strike action. This is a crime. There is no point in changing ministers. The government needs to provide a solution to this issue. As students, we will have to waste our time at home. A minister was replaced by another. The new ministers need to understand the situation. This is a crime. We demand the government to stop playing with the students' lives. We will support this struggle. We need professionals to develop the country, but the students do not get an opportunity to study.
This afternoon, the University Trade Union Joint Committee elaborated on their future course of action.
We will no longer be involved in all essential services, including tending to water supply and electricity. There are samples on oral cancer at the University of Peradeniya. We will not be responsible for what happens to them. From midnight tonight, we will refrain from these duties. The Minister of Higher Education must attend to this, considering it a national emergency. The Treasury is facing an issue with regard to debt management, and there is an issue in raising the wages. Once we get approval from the Treasury, we will meet the promises. We request the non-academic staff to not cripple the education of the university students. We must solve this through dialogue.
We are now going to cross over to the newsroom where senior journalist Mr. Asoka Dias is standing by to give us a history and more details of the non-academic staff strike action. Now, Mr. Dias, when we identify these staff members as academic and non-academic staff, what does it mean?
Yes, Shaheen, in the university structure, the people who are involved in the academic work are the academic staff. That means the professors, the lecturers, senior lecturers, they come under the academic category, as well as the librarian, assistant librarian, they are academic staff. And then you have a whole set of administrative staff who are maybe in the finance sector, maybe in the administrative sector, maybe in the labs who facilitate the educational process, and maybe in the farms, because universities has farms, and all that staff come under non-academic sector.
Yes, now, Mr. Dias, we do understand that over these 15,000 non-academic staff are protesting, citing 5 demands. But the question is, what is the real reason behind this strike action?
Staff is demanding monthly compensatory allowance, which was promised to them in 2017 by UGC and the Ministry of Higher Education. Now, the key to understand this is the phrase, monthly compensatory allowance. What is being compensated? Now, when you go back to the history from 1990s, late 1990s onwards, there were a certain allowances offered to the academic staff. Research allowance, academic allowance, additional allowance, there are various terms for that. The non-academic trade unions claim that the academic staff certain academic staff get about 160%, 167% of their basic salary as various allowances. So they are also demanding 100% of their basic salary as an allowance. Now, government has promised to offer that in 2017 in stages.
Mr. Dias, now this issue is believed to have been persistent for a while now, since 2016. So what is the reason for this to crop up now?
As promised, the UGC had to pay about 25% of this monthly compensatory allowance increment in January 2018, which the UGC hasn't honored. So the trade unions of the non-academic staff are on strike for the last 15 days. The crux of the matter is the academics of this country has to be compensated. They have to be compensated for their good work and academic work. They are a special category. And rest of the university staff are also claiming this part of this allowance, claiming part of that. Is it fair? But the flip side is the government has already promised to give this in 2017. So when a government takes a decision, it is the responsibility of the government to honor that. There must be coherent policy and there must be a well thought out plan to ensure that the country's higher education sector is functional and the young people of this country are not disturbed in their education.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Asoka Dias. Of course, that was Mr. Asoka Dias, senior journalist, giving us a history and more details of the non-academic staff strike action.
The Government Surveys Association is preparing to launch a trade union action in protest against a contract being awarded to a US firm in violation of tender procedure.
The project in question deals with the regularization of providing title deeds and modernization of preparing cadastral maps. A cabinet paper submitted by Minister of Lands and Parliament Reforms Gayantha Karunatilaka in September last year noted that US firm Trimble Navigation Limited, based out of California, had presented a $170 million proposal in this regard. The proposal had come through the Prime Minister-led CCEM, or Cabinet Committee on Economic Management. The cabinet memo also noted that through discussions, the government was able to negotiate the cost to $154 million US. During this period, the company had relocated to Delaware from California and in the process had changed its name from Trimble Navigation Limited to Trimble Incorporated. The Minister of Finance, making observations during cabinet, had stated that a clear explanation needs to be provided on the manner in which the name changed. The Finance Ministry had noted that approval can be provided to conduct a pilot project at a minimal cost. However, by the 11th of October 2017, the whole project received the green light from the Cabinet. Under the first phase of the project, Trimble Incorporated has been tasked with surveying 2.5 million blocks of land around the country, excluding the Western Province, and regularize the issuing of title deeds. The second phase will see the project being implemented for 2.5 million plots of land in the Western Province. The Government Surveyors Association points out that although Trimble Incorporated has projected a cost of $154 million for the project, the Government Surveyors Department could accomplish the task with less than $40 million.
The CCEM, which was led by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, has suggested that the survey department obtain a loan of 26 billion rupees at a 4% interest rate. Around 16 billion rupees of this money will be pocketed by individuals. This is an unsolicited proposal. That means there is no tender process. By now, we have received information that they are going to surreptitiously sign this agreement at the Prime Minister's office. The documents have come out of the Attorney General's department. They want this company to survey 1.1 million plots of land. However, who will be doing this? Government surveyors. And they will be allocating resources attached to this department for this purpose. So the only thing they are bringing from outside is the loan and the technology. This is stealing public funds, and this is an attempt to hand over our department to an American company. We oppose this, and we plan to enter into continuous trade union action in protest against it.
A new report by the Asian Development Bank states it is exploring the possibility of hiring independent auditors to audit projects they fund in Sri Lanka. This is to avoid delays at the Auditor General's department.
In the report titled Public Financial Management Systems, Sri Lanka, the ADB says loan agreements carry a deadline for the submission of audited project financial statements to the donor, and to meet these deadlines, the Auditor General's Department sets timelines for the issuance of various audit reports. The ADB report states that there are delays in meeting these deadlines because of resource constraints. The ADB says the Auditor General's Department does not subcontract project audits to private firms or individuals. To avoid capacity constraints, the report has recommended the ADB to hold discussions with the Auditor General's Department to explore the possibility of hiring independent auditors to fast-track the audit process. The ADB report has also observed that actual transfers made to provincial councils by the central government for capital expenditure are less than the amount allocated in the central budget. The report warns that this could affect the implementation of donor-funded projects, where the provincial council is significantly dependent on budgetary allocations for counterpart funds. The report has also raised concerns of how resource constraints could increase the risk of malpractice and fraud.
President's Counsel Salia Piris, chairman of the Office on Missing Persons, outlined the purpose and powers of the newly appointed office.
Missing or disappearances referred to during this period include the conflict in the north and east and the aftermath of that, include not only civilians or combatants, but also those missing in action of the armed forces, the police or the civil defense forces. But its mandate also goes beyond that, goes beyond the period of the northeast conflict. Its mandate also stretches to other instances of civil disturbances in Sri Lanka. For instance, the 87 to 89 insurgency and the missing and enforced disappearances which happened at that time, and the incident which happened in the 1971 insurrection. So the whole purpose of the Office on Missing Persons is to provide relief to those who have been for long years waiting to get answers to what has happened to their loved ones.
Given the magnitude and the complexity of the matter, the OMP has been vested with certain powers.
First, we are empowered to establish a tracing unit. There will be a victims and witnesses protection unit. There will be other units for investigation, for forensics, and this is an institution, this is a permanent institution. The institution will be powerful enough and strong enough to be independent, to be impartial, objective. The Office on Missing Persons is not a body which is empowered to punish or impose criminal or civil liability.
The OMP says victim-centeredness will be the guiding mechanism for its operations, and it is one of 4 institutions and of multiple measures envisaged by the government to ensure reconciliation and lasting peace in the country.
The United National Party suffered its 30th election defeat under its current leadership at the recently concluded local government election. In the wake of the latest election defeat, the party leader is under scrutiny yet again. UNP Southern Provincial Councillor TVK Gamani spoke openly about the current situation in the party. Recently, the provincial councillor tried to gather other UNP provincial councillors to discuss the issue, but was prevented from doing so by the party leadership.
The
leadership of the United National Party showed their incapability through the defeat at the February 10th election. President J.R. Jayawardena introduced the open economy to the country, which brought in massive development. President Premadasa introduced programs like Jana Savya and Gamudawa, all which are relevant to the people. But this government has not initiated a single program to date. They've only disrupted the programs which were already in effect, like the fertilizer subsidy and school uniforms. Through this, they gain the dissatisfaction of the people. There should be a change from ground level all the way up to the leadership. There should be a major change in leadership. The country should reach out to the ground level and identify a leader who understands the roots, restart the development and initiate a program to rebuild the country. If this is done, the UNPers can be protected and at the same time take the party forward as well. Although the United National Party is a democratic party, there isn't any democracy. If someone launches a struggle, that person will either have to distance himself from the party or leave the party entirely. This is what is happening now. The others who are trying to take over leadership are also trying to do so through the back door. There is a whole line of them waiting to take up the leadership. But the issue is, those who are putting themselves forward for it don't have what it takes to lead.
The leadership and senior members of United National Party are also under heavy scrutiny at rural level.
Demonstrations were held in several areas today regarding the irregularities which are alleged to have taken place when nominating candidates for the local government bodies.
Convening a media briefing today, a group claimed that candidates who received a lesser number of votes as opposed to those who received a high number of votes in the UNP have been appointed to the Mahara Pradesh Sabha.
We asked the party leadership to resolve this issue and give us justice, but they have ignored us. We will be patient until the 20th, but after the 20th, all former Pradesh Sabha members and chairpersons from across the country will stage a struggle and hunger strike opposite Sirikota. If the party continues to treat us like this, it gives us a reason to rethink about remaining in the party. So, dear leader and general secretary, do not drive us to the point of leaving to other parties.
A group performed a ritual at the Navagamua Paptini Devalaya in protest against the irregularities which are said to have taken place when appointing members of the United National Party to the Kaduwela Municipal Council. The ritual was performed by a group including the former opposition leader of the council, Priyantha Patberia.
I am a senior member who has served as the opposition leader and organizer of this electorate for 20 years. And if I am being treated like this by the UNP leader despite my actions to protect him when the party was in a state of crisis, what will be the fate of the entire party?
A few UNP members of the Kota Municipal Council launched their demonstration opposite the party headquarters Sirikota on the 9th of this month. The demonstrations later spread among several UNP activists in the local government bodies of Dikkovita, Polgahavela, Damana, Kaduwela and Dehiovita.
Well, that's a wrap of Primetime News. I'm Stephanie Lazarus.
And I'm Shahan Rampati. Well, it appears and highly likely are the words used by UK Prime Minister Theresa May in pinning blame on Russia for the poison attack on a former spy. Straight after the news on Crosstalk, RT's Peter Level discusses these claims and flaunted threats.